mauled by the foxes who fed on the scraps of rubbish like foxes do. But it's time to be positive. It's time to lift our spirits because you can always get a win in the next match against Manchester City. This is Talk of the Trinity. Hello and welcome to season 2.
Hang on. I'm away for 5 minutes and then, the show, I know the show must go on, but, I am back now. So.
Oh, mate, I'm sorry. I do apologise. Over to you, as per. Over to you.
I mean, I was going to do my usual intro, but, just in case we have changed, I would say welcome to the show you've always known and loved, Talk of the Trinity, but who knows what's been going on in the week that I have been elsewhere. So we're almost have to say I'm going back old school. Welcome to a nice old school edition of Talk of the Trinity. I, despite rumours to the contrary, am still Baz Barrett. With me, probably despite rumours to the contrary as well, still is Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. And even though a lot of things may have changed in the last week, some things never will. Some of which include our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we have been keeping you up to date with all of the latest Villa news, even if you wanted to know that news or not, over the last couple of days, and seeking your opinions on all things Villa, which we will maybe touch upon during the course of this episode, or that trip down memory lane from a visual perspective. You can go on our YouTube channel, Talk to Trinity, or our visual delights. If they're too much for you and you just want a good old-fashioned audio blast, then Amazon, Spotify, Google, Apple are your platforms of choice. Or you can go on FanHub as well. Or, I say that, we might have signed up for 6 more since I've been away for a week. Who knows indeed? But some things you want to get back to, some things you yearn to repeat. If only you could have that moment again, you may think. But one moment, which I'm pretty sure none of us would want to go through again, happened at Villa Park on Saturday just gone, when Leicester came to town and went away with the 3 points. Villa 2, Leicester 4. From your perspective, Will, being hit for 4 at home usually raises eyebrows, may raise questions in terms of what was going on in terms of team selection, tactics, etc. Is this a game where you can simply just say 4 stupid mistakes, otherwise we would have won? Or was there something a bit deeper for you to worry about?
Well, I'll be completely honest with you. Letting 4 goals in, he's at home is very unlike us, really, isn't it? I mean, I know that one of us predicted a 4-2 scoreline, but unfortunately, they predicted it the other way. Was it all mistake? I don't think it was, and that might get a little bit of backlash. I'm used to it. That's fine, as long as it's not backsplash. Backlash is absolutely fine.
Something else entirely.
For talking about their goals, the first goal, it did feel as though Boubacar Kamara could have released the ball quicker. So yes, that one a defensive mistake there. He should have laid the ball off quicker. He probably should have gone back to Mings or to Conser. Maybe Emi could have gone to one of the centre-backs instead, knowing that the Leicester Foxes were on the prowl on the edge of our box. Kamara tried to do a little bit too much, but I think that's because he knows he's got the quality and he's got the confidence too as well. And he's done it many times this season. We remember the turn on the edge of the box against Leeds at home. The second goal, it wasn't the greatest clearance from Tyrone Mings. It went straight back to their bloke, and then he thought Iheanacho was going to be offside, and he obviously wasn't, which is, it's a bit disappointing after all of the talk that he did a couple of weeks ago about how they pride themselves on having that offside line really tight and they celebrate the offside, such as in that game against Leeds. The next two goals, though, I don't really think that they were mistakes. Boubacar Kamara got dispossessed. He got dispossessed by a hungry Leicester forward line. And in the last goal, Alex Moreno did everything that he possibly could to try to intercept that ball. It's not a mistake. It's not as if he's ducked out of the way. He's tried to stop it and he's got back and he's tried to put a blocking on the line. It's just unfortunate that Leicester caught us out, with their four shots at goal. And Emi Martinez is doing what he's been asked to do to play higher up the pitch. He got rounded a few times, which is unlike him. But it's one of those things. I don't see it happening again to us where we concede four goals in the same manner. I think Unai is somebody who's going to learn from that, whilst also trying to persevere with the way that he wants to play. So, yeah, I mean, what about you? Did you think it was four mistakes, or did you think that it was maybe one or two, or do you think that we should just abandon that passing out approach altogether?
I suppose it depends how you define a mistake, really. If you're defining mistake as also including poor execution, then yeah, all four of them would fall into that category, in my view. I mean, as you identified, some of the mistakes were more obvious than others. I mean, in terms of Camera got dispossessed twice. I mean, I think in terms of you've identified there the way he plays, he's comfortable on the ball. Yeah, you're going to get done occasionally. Unfortunately, it happened twice in one game and he got punished both times. Doesn't detract from the positive start that he's had in a Villa shirt. So I think the first goal, you're going to be saying to him, kind of maybe a bit more of an agricultural approach might be needed on occasion when you're in that position on the edge of the box where there's nowhere else to go if you do get dispossessed. The second one for him, yeah, he did get dispossessed on the halfway line. So I think there's, a bit of scope for other things needed to happen before the ball went back into the back of the net. But yeah, people are going to look at him in that situation. But as you said, would you want him to stop playing his natural game? Probably not. And, he's a young player in the grand scheme of things. So he's going to learn from the experience. And, you don't want to be too hard on him. The goal which involved the Mings clearance, I mean, yeah, you could tell when the cross came in that, yeah, we weren't lined up defensively the way you'd expect us to be. And, Iheanacho, I mean, he will have been retired for like 50 years and he'll still be scoring against Villa, just in terms of the record he has against us, is absolutely ridiculous. So no surprise to see him on the score sheet. And the fourth, Moreno, I think that goes down to poor execution, really. I mean, you could say he's in the right place, which is good, but if you get yourself in that position, you're expected to finish the job. And he didn't. And in terms of the stats, we had the majority of the ball, we had the majority of the shots. Yeah, it's identified. I think Leicester scored off every shot on target they had, or at least it certainly seemed like that. And I think when Villa went 2-1 up, I don't think there were too many murmurings around the ground of, we're not playing very well, or anything of that nature. I just had the stats given to me in real time. Leicester had 5 shots on target, apparently, and scored 4. Yeah, I mean, in terms of if you want mistakes like that to happen, you almost want them all to happen in one game, because as you said, you can just kind of get it out your system and just go, look, we just had one of those days. Let's not make like to really work a bit harder on the training field this week. We've only got some jokers next week. Oh shit, we've actually got Man City, but it's not going to.
Speaking of mistakes, though, and I'm sorry to interrupt, you're right. I think where you'd rather get them all out of the way in one go. However, a question for you, which I genuinely don't know the answer to, and again, it'll be seen that maybe I'm being a bit negative. Would you rather have got those mistakes in the game against Leicester like that, and then and then have Man City next, and the chances are that Man City could potentially beat us. I'm not saying that they will. Or would you rather, if you had the choice, just go, fuck it, I'll take my chance against Leicester, and I'd rather get all the mistakes out of the way in the Man City game because you're expecting to probably lose it anyway.
I'd probably, in that scenario, rather get the mistakes out of the way against Leicester because you can look at the rest of the game and go, this is a big if. But, for the purpose of suspended disbelief, you can go, if we hadn't made those mistakes, we probably would have won the game fairly comfortably. I mean, in terms of we gave them at least 2 goals. If you're being incredibly negative, you'd say 4. And they had one other shot, which they created themselves, really, if you put it like that. So you can almost say, yeah, if you play that game again, kind of without those mistakes, same kind of pattern of play, especially in the first half hour, you'd expect Villa to win. So you can almost kind of brush it off. The problem if you make 4 mistakes like that against City is they have enough. I know we'll come on to City a bit later, and they're not in the greatest form, you could argue, at the moment, but quality-wise, they would have created a lot more kind of on their own. They didn't need our help in hand. So the problem with giving City 4 goals is they probably arguably hit another 4, or in terms of they have chances at least to score another 4. So you might be looking at absolute worst case scenario, kind of an 8 goal kind of tanking kind of against you, which regardless of the circumstances is not good for morale, even if it is against a team, as you said, you'd expect possibly, or you wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if you did lose. So yeah, looking at it from that perspective, I'm glad we got it all out the way in one game, rather than potentially saving them up for a real kind of potential heavier defeat, which I think perhaps would have affected the confidence even more, especially with the game after the City game being Arsenal. So you kind of expecting another difficult game there. No, how about you? Would you have spread the mistakes around, throw them all in the City camp, or has my reasoned analysis persuaded you of my point of view? I have stunned Will into silence. That is the demonstration of my prowess. But no, I think we lost you there for a moment, Will. But just in terms of which way would you go in that debate?
My apologies. Can you hear me now? Is this better?
It is. It is indeed.
Yeah. There you go. My brummy tones. Man City. I'd take them all against Man City.
No. So, not for the first time on the show, we have a completely different opinion, which is, variety is the spice of life. And speaking of variety being the spice of life and potential different opinions, we did put a poll on our Twitter page in respect of Tyrone Mings, who we've mentioned in respect to one of the goals there. His contract due to expire in summer of 2024. We put it to the fans, would you offer him another deal? Or would you let him go at the end of the current deal, or kind of cash in kind of in the summer? You've been avidly keeping an eye on the results of those polls on the poll as it came in. Will, what are the fans saying in respect of whether to give Mings a new deal?
So the fans are very much in favour of giving Tyrone Mings a new deal, though I think that there is the caveat there that if we could get somebody better in, we would do, and we would keep Tyrone as more of a backup defender. And only if he wanted to leave for first team football, because he's been such a good servant for the club. And I don't think that can be argued, because regardless of what people think of his ability, he has been an amazing ambassador.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of it doesn't go down as a failed signing. Then definitely not. But the the joy of live recording, I think maybe Will is maybe what his signal has been blocked by one of those Chinese weather balloons that have been seen in the air over recent days. So whilst we wait for Will to come back undercover, he is of the Mings. Give him a extension view. I mean, I think in terms of if you had to make a decision today, then I would give Mings a new deal. But the caveat there in terms of hoping that you've improved the quality of the team in the 18 months period does lead you to think I maybe a 12-month extension, perhaps. I think that kind of at this stage would be the maximum I would go to currently. But we have Carlos coming back in the not too well, hopefully during the rest of this season to have some competition.
I do apologise. Hello.
Yep, you are back. I was expertly regaling the listeners. So I was just saying in terms of if I had to make a decision today, I'd give him an extension, maybe just for 12 months, because you're hoping in terms of with Carlos coming back, for example, and as you said, potentially looking to improve the squad in the summer, that we would be in a position come 18 months' time where Mings is not necessarily first choice. And if that circumstance arose because of his service to the club, I'd be in the camp. I'd let him go at that stage. But as of today, he is first choice. So I wouldn't be getting a taxi ready for him or calling the removal men just yet. But I think it leads to what we were saying previously. After expertly trying to hype up the transfer window or the second half of the transfer window with all the signings we could have made that we didn't make, the summer is definitely the time where we are going to be, you would anticipate, making our presence known in the transfer market. So we will have to wait and see in respect of what happens there. But where we won't have to wait and see for too much longer is what will happen at the Etihad on Sunday afternoon coming up, where we go and take on Manchester City. And fair to say, off the field, there's been some potential issues that have arisen, which may be a long time in the investigation stage, certainly, and which our lawyers have advised us not to mention too much. Allegations have been made, charges brought, denials made, and lawyers instructed. So we'll have to wait and see how that develops. But off the field shenanigans in inverted commas, the inverted commas can be removed for events that happened on the field for Man City in their last game, where they fell to defeat away at Spurs in one of those very Spursy situations whereby I don't think many people expected them to win based on the form that they'd been in. And they pulled another result out against Manchester City. And, it was probably deserved, really, from a Spurs perspective. And out of nowhere, they find themselves back in a race in the for those Champions League places. And that is the context in which we will be heading to the Etihad. And I suppose a question for you, Will, as I've mentioned in terms of, they lost their last game, which counts as a crisis for a club like Man City when you lose one game. Should we expect a wounded, low morale Man City team after losing away at Spurs, or is it you're very much expecting it to be business as usual for Man City at the Etihad?
I think first of all, I'd like to apologise for all the in and out that I'm doing. It's more than the bloody hokey cokey. Service in Bourneville, internet wise, just isn't what it used to be. But there we go.
Them Quakers have got a lot to answer for.
Oh mate, I'm telling you, they'll be quaking in their boots when I'm done with them. Anyway, I mean, Man City have never done well at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They just don't score there. They don't get points there. They tend to be on the losing side as well because of the way that Tottenham play against them. They play very low and they counter attack. But this isn't talking Tottenham. This is talk of the Trinity. Or at least it was the last time I checked, because Holler of the Holt has been knocking around. If you know, you know. Yeah, I think they'll be a bit wounded. I think that they'll be more inclined to play a Kevin De Bruyne against us, and to hope that Erling Haaland can get a few goals, because they've dried up just a little bit recently for him. But with the Champions League coming up as well, um, it may be that he decides that he prioritises that. They're still very much in this Premier League title race. I think Arsenal are probably due a wobble, and they'll be looking at us and they'll be thinking, this is a new Villa team, a very good Villa team that have improved a lot under Unai Emery, and form wise, we're one of the informed teams at the moment. However, they'll be looking at those new ways of playing out from the back, and they'll be thinking that if they press high enough and get us compact enough, that that they could beat us. And even higher up the pitch as well, with the likes of Buendia and JJ or Coutinho playing that little bit narrower and cutting in. That's what their fullbacks like to do as well. So I think it'll be a real head-to-head, toe-to-toe battle, but they'll definitely be seeing this as a game that they can win, and not just because of our recent record up in Manchester as a whole, really, but especially against Man City. Is it one of those games that you think that Man City will be licking their lips for, or do you think that this is our time to go and show everybody just what we're made of, and that actually we are still on course for our little push for Europe?
I mean, I think in terms of you mentioned the goals have dried up for Haaland. I think to put it into kind of context of where kind of Man City are, he hasn't scored in 2 games. And in the previous game, he scored a hat trick. So it's crisis. Get rid of them all. I've seen the stories about Haaland never should have joined City. Yeah, doesn't want to play there anymore. I mean, we're certainly in different spheres of crisis when things aren't going very well for our respective teams. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said about De Bruyne. I think they will be. There always is a bit of Pep roulette in terms of his starting lineup, trying to get that rotation. But you would expect his strongest team, or what he thinks his strongest team, will play against Villa on in the game on Sunday. You expect Haaland to play, to De Bruyne to play. I mean, in terms of, even in not great form, there's still not really very many weaknesses in this team. I mean, in terms of Cancelo has been swiftly dispatched for Lewis kind of coming in the left back. I mean, he looks a very good player in all honesty, but you might target him in terms of just because you got to try and target somewhere in this kind of armory of Man City. But yeah, I mean, our record there is dreadful. they've still got a lot of good players. I mean, I do agree with you that it's an opportunity for Villa to show what they're about. I mean, in terms of results wise, as we touched upon before, the games where there's less expectation to have the ball, where there's more of an emphasis on defensive organisation and shape and keeping your discipline. Generally, those have been the games where we've played better under Emery. Still a bit of a work in progress in games where we're expected to have the majority of possession and take the game to our opponents. I don't think we're going to be doing that against Man City. I think it'll be a counter-attacking type performance, and I think that will suit us fine. So it is the cliches in terms of keep it quiet, keep the opposition pen, kind of not riding a wave of optimism too early on. That cliche, get to half an hour, nil without conceding a goal, get to half time without conceding a goal. I mean, I don't want to say get to half time 1-0 up or 60 minutes 2-0 up because, we all know what happened at Man City the last time that occurred. But as it goes, if you're going to play City and in inverted commas bad time, then this is probably one of those times, although it is very much clutching at straws to call this a bad time. But in terms of the way Villa are going to approach this game, are you expecting any different to the 4-4-2 that we have implemented under Unai Emery, or are you expecting a tactical surprise?
I'm expecting the same. I'm expecting that he'll go with that same formation, but the approach to games may differ. He may be a little bit more counter-attacking against certain teams rather than on the front foot. And we've seen that, haven't we? That we've counter-attacked against the likes of Brighton away, and we've been on the front foot a little bit more against some of the other teams that we've played recently. With the games that we've got coming up this month, and it looks like a hard month now, especially with Arsenal needing points and Sean Dyche saving Everton from relegation. I think we've just got to go and try and get every single point that we can. So for me, it'll be a counter-attacking 4-4-2. With pretty much the same starting lineup again. Alex Marino probably comes in for Luka Din. And we may see Philippe Coutinho after his cameo, and very unfortunately had that goal disallowed against Leicester. It was a great little bit of work by him to jinx through the defenders. But apart from that, I think it's going to be very much the same Aston Villa. And this is going to be your Aston Villa team for the next 18 or so games until the end of the season, and we can bring players in.
I mean, almost by default, I'm kind of the starting lineup with a few of the departures that took place in January. But we've set up the team, we've set up the players. The ref is going to blow his starting whistle. Score prediction. Do you think we're going to get something out of the game?
I don't think we will, unfortunately. I think we score. I think Man City are vulnerable at the back, and I think that we do score, but I think that they'll probably just have a little bit too much for us, and Man City will scrape a 2-1 victory over us come this weekend, and we'll have to get ourselves together again to go and beat your Arsenal the week after.
Well, you got to strike while the iron's hot against my Arsenal, but in terms of for me for this game, I don't think we get anything out of this. Unfortunately, I mean, I think in terms of there's no disgrace in that, but a gap between the two teams in terms of points in the table is only 17. We should be honest. I thought it'd be more in terms of that, but I mean they've been champions for a number of years now, and in terms of the things off the field, the accusations may fly in terms of how they managed to get there. Not that we're ones to speculate or encourage speculation.
Throw the book
don't know, but I think as of today, I think they're going to have too much for us. I'm not expecting a hammering. I don't think it's going to be embarrassing, but 3-0 City, I think, for me. So at least, in terms of whilst the title of the show, the pundits of the show, the whole format of the show may have changed over the last week. At least some things never change, which are more positive Will, slightly more negative Baz. So in terms of those that equilibrium of predictions has been restored. So good measures all round. And speaking of things that you can always rely on, that does include our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we will be seeking, no doubt, in a number of polls, your thoughts on the starting lineup, score predictions, anything else that is happening in the world of Villa between now and Sunday. You can check out our YouTube channel if you want to catch up on episodes of yesteryear. You can even, if you're really that way inclined, you can go back to when we predicted previous Man City games and see how we got on there. If you really want to relive that Villa Man City vibe, or if you just want our audio tones for your listening pleasure, you can go on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google for the audio version of our podcast. And we are also on Fan Hub as well. And before I pass you over to my co-host, who I believe is still Mr. Trinity, for his final thoughts, and I'm sure he will echo my sentiments in what I'm about to say, but just want to give a shout out to friend of the show, Connor Sherry, who is taking some time away from the football field currently. We just want to send I'll leave Will to send his best wishes. But I was, all of us are talking to Trinity. For me, sending you our best wishes, Connor. Thinking of you. Hope in terms of the break will do you good, and that we'll see you back on a football field soon. But you will hear me again soon with our Man City preview in the can. It'll be our Man City review before you know it, and then it'll be our Arsenal preview. But from me, thanks very much for listening, and be with you again soon.
Yeah, big love, Con. You're with us, mate. We're thinking of you. Just take all the time that you need, and then get back there and smash them and stack them and come out on top. But this weekend, will Manchester City and their super fans be saying hip hip hooray again? If you know, you know. Do you know what I mean? Or will they have another bad thing just to throw on to the pile of 100 others that they've had go wrong this week? You know what? I put a word in with the FA and I've tried to help you out, Man City. My suggestion is you send back Jack and you give us Julian Alvarez as well, and all is forgiven. You don't have to worry about any other fines. But until we find out the results of my email, and until we find out the results of the next game, it's cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. He's definitely the real Baz Barrett, and he is back. Negative Baz. He's Villa till he dies as well. I'm Villa till I die. A massive happy birthday shout out to Stanley. You're a geezer. You're a dog as well. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.